Thousands of lives of Zimbabwean exemption permit holders are hanging in the balance and could see banks in South Africa closing some of their accounts. This comes after the South African government last month decided to discontinue the Zimbabwe exemption program and give permit holders until December 31st next year to regularize their immigration status or face deportation. To unpack this and more, we are joined by Zanu PF Johannesburg spokesperson Kennedy Mandaza, who joins us via video link, and Advocate Simba Chitando, who's with me in the studio and is representing about 250,000 Zimbabweans in the Gauteng High Court. Kennedy, very good morning. Simba, thank you so much for joining us in the studio. Kennedy, maybe to start off with you, what is the Zanu PF's position regarding this situation that these 250,000 permit holders find themselves in?
Good morning, and good morning to the viewers. Thank you for the time that you have given us. The issue of the permits has become an emotive issue for those who may lose their jobs at the end of the day, and also for the host country. And from where we sit, we welcome the decision that was taken by the government of South Africa. We noted that the decision, but we think that much more should have been done in terms of engagement to make sure that the people that are going to be affected, they are warned in time, they are given the reasons why the permits are not going to be renewed, and so on. And we also feel that the time that has been given, it should be used wisely by almost everyone involved to make sure that they regularize their stay in the country. It is important that as a country, South Africa should account for all the citizens that are in the country, and they can only do so by ensuring that the people have permits. So we would want to believe that when they came up with this particular decision that they took, they looked at all the merits and demerits of not extending the permits, as it were, but giving people an opportunity to make sure that they go through the process that other people are going through to make sure that they have the permits and they are regularized in as far as their stay in the country is concerned. We would want to believe that.
Kennedy, if you'd like to hold one moment, I'd just like to engage Simba Chitando, who's in studio. We will obviously come back to you. Simba, 250,000 individuals that you are representing. Talk to us about where things stand at the moment. What is your mandate from your clients, so to speak?
Okay, it's important just to be very specific on who my clients are. There's two institutions that have members of the ZEP community. It's not all 250,000. In fact, it's not 250,000. It's significantly less, about 180,000 people. And there are various perspectives or ideas of what should be taking place. In fact, I believe there's going to be a meeting in that community later on today. Where it stands at the moment, insofar as my instructions are concerned, you mentioned bank accounts. There's a directive that was sent out during the course of this past week after the decision not to extend the permits that we're going to be challenging. Okay, and so there's going to be two cases involving this matter. Things are moving very fast. It's a very fluid situation. Mr. Mandaza is correct in saying that it is an emotive issue, and we are obviously aware of that and taking the best steps legally. The legal team has expanded. It's not just me. It's several people of various backgrounds.
Simba, I'm going to come in there and talk a little bit about the SADC migration policy. Now, SADC has a position on migration. This issue affects not just South Africa and Zimbabwe, but potentially the entire SADC community. Would it not have been prudent to engage SADC as your first respondent before the courts of South Africa?
Well, SADC didn't make the decision. We're challenging the decision maker. Okay, And the courts have jurisdiction over what happens within South Africa. We start, and before you go to internationally, the process, the accepted process in these sort of matters is that you exhaust your domestic remedies first. So the domestic remedy is the High Courts, and then you can escalate it perhaps to the Supreme Court of Appeal or the Constitutional Court. And when you've exhausted your remedies, this is a trite international principle, that when you've exhausted the domestic remedies, then you can seek a regional or international remedy, SADC being one of many. There's the African Court of Human Rights, there's several. But at the moment, this is a decision, the decision maker is the South African government. Our instructions are to challenge that decision in courts, and the decision by the courts is binding upon the South African government if it was to go in our favor.
Now, you talk about the situation being fluid. Outline for us where the average individual that you're representing stands as of now.
The average ZEP holder is a difficult category to lay out. I'll tell you why. It's because there are some who are who occupy forms of employment like waiters, the hospitality industry. There's a significant community there. There are others who are in the educational space. There are others who are entrepreneurs. I have one ZEP client who has a business worth several millions of rands, has assets that are worth several millions of rands. So you can't categorize everyone, as many have tried, to categorize them into a lower income status so they can justify expelling them. A lot of them are investors. In fact, even the lower skilled, and that would be my argument, even the lower skilled and perhaps not as economically wealthy as the individual who owns assets worth several million, even they are investors in my view. And they have rights. They have put a lot of their money into, or their efforts and their money into this economy, and they deserve protection.
Now, do you in your mind, before we cross back to Kennedy, feel that South African Home Affairs has done an incredible amount and certainly offering some form of leniency, 178,000 who will become undocumented individuals in a few months should they not regularize their permits, is a huge number, particularly when they are taking flack for the unemployment levels, which are standing at 7.8 million people. So certainly a lot of South Africans could use those 178,000 jobs.
That's a very good point. There's two issues that come out of your question. The first one, I want to be very clear. I think Mr. Mandaza mentioned something about the regularization. You also have mentioned it. ZEP holders are regularized already. I don't buy into the argument that we're regularizing people who are unregularized. They are regularized. They have permits. They've been on various permit regimes since 2009. So I dispute that outright. These are regularized people. They are lawfully in the country. They're not unlawful immigrants. The next point is, will South Africans benefit from this? No, of course they won't. The reason is that you're going to have almost 180,000 people that potentially could be removed from this economy. It doesn't put South Africa first, it puts South Africa last. The investors look at this, people in the property space, who's going to occupy the properties that these individuals are renting? And if they sell because they can't regularize themselves, after being deregularized, you say they must regularize themselves, if they sell, then you're going to have capital flight. That damages the economy.
So obviously there are a number of factors. We don't want to forget about Kennedy, who's on the line. Kennedy, you talked about welcoming this decision by the South African government. Many Zimbabweans would argue that if 178,000 Zimbabweans returned to Zimbabwe, there would be an absolute catastrophe in that Zimbabwe has no capacity to employ these 178,000, never mind the unemployment levels currently in that country.
The basis of me saying that we welcome the decision is that South Africa is a sovereign country, and it takes decisions for what it needs to do for the people that enter into that particular country. And they having accommodated us and given us the permits for the period that we have been using these permits, I think that decision that they took is informed basically by what they looked at, and which we feel at some point, if there is need for organization to engage the South African government, their Home Affairs, to get to know the reasons behind the deregistration or the termination of the permits, I think the South African government will also be in a position to engage them. In fact,
but
it has been an ongoing process.
Is it really about engaging and establishing the cause as opposed to potentially reversing it? Because either way you look at it, it will be a catastrophe if 100,000, never mind 50 or 60,000 Zimbabweans were to cross the borders today to make a fresh start in their lives.
The process will be to engage the government of South Africa to understand the reasons, and even furthermore, you can engage them to change their stance. But I think it would be naive for all of us to think that Zimbabwe would not be able to accommodate its 178,000 citizens or more. The people that we have in South Africa, they are coming from their homes, and we would want to appeal to our government in Zimbabwe to make sure that they come up with programs that will accommodate the people that will then eventually move into the country by creating, offering them land and opportunities so that they use and capitalize on the skills and investments that they've acquired over the period that they've been here. But this, we are saying that it should only happen when they've exhausted all the processes that are supposed to be involved in order to make sure that their stay in South Africa continue to be legal, which is the 12-month period that we have been given so that people can apply and get the right the documentation to stay in the country. But Zimbabwe remains open for its citizens at any given time to accept them, and our appeal, like I've already indicated, is to the government to make sure that there are concessions and programs and projects created for these people so that we can capitalize on the skills that they have gained over the period that they've been working in South Africa.
Kennedy Mandaza, thank you so much. And Kennedy does suggest that if 178,000 individuals in Simba do go back home, they are coming back to Zimbabwe with a huge amount of resources that they have gained. Now, assuming that that process is where it ends, what are we likely to see in terms of the clients that you represent over the next few months if the High Court or any courts that you appeal to are in favor of the decision that the Home Affairs has currently made?
Okay. The most important thing is that these human beings, these are individuals. They can decide where they want to go. I like what Mr. Mandaza said when he said that, look, the government and Zimbabwe is prepared to accept some of its citizens back if their program's policies to accept them back. That decision is for the Zimbabwean individual to make, himself or herself, considering whatever circumstances that they have. In fact, even the South African government's decision to end the permit, they say that very specifically depends on the personal circumstances of each and every single one of these ZDP holders and their families, which they would obviously take into account. So that is a decision that they make, but the challenge that I've been asked to take on is this a very abrupt, impossible decision that has been made by Cabinet. Home Affairs is not working before COVID. It is not. It isn't.
So you talk about abrupt as a final response. How much time should have been given by the Home Affairs? What would not have been abrupt?
Well, the previous regimes, the previous renewals, there was, I think, even 6 months before the determination for people to apply, to reapply, to renew their whatever regime it was, ZSP, DZP, and then obviously now ZEP. There was a significant period of time. That was when things were a lot different from now, where we have not plunged in an economic COVID crisis. Before I came on, I heard you speaking, everyone's talking about it. The Home Affairs itself, not the applicants, not me, not any other institution have said that they're doing an audit of themselves because they've collapsed. We know that. They've told us that. They're advocates just like me. Some of them are friends who are looking into this issue with the collapse of Home Affairs. That no one, they're not in a position to accept 200,000 applications today. They can't do it. They're not doing the applications before.
That's where we're going to have to leave it. We've run short of time. Advocate Simba Chitando, I appreciate your time coming on to the show this morning. We've been speaking to Zanu PF in South Africa, spokesperson Kennedy Mandaza, who came via our video link, and Advocate Simba Chitando in studio, who's representing about 178,000, as he says, Zimbabweans in the Gauteng High Court regarding those Zimbabwe exemption permits which are due to expire.